Hi everyone. In this video session we are going to look at another problem in operating system from the topic deadlock. This question was asked way back in 1993 for 2 marks. But still I think this question is quite relevant and you may see such questions appearing in GATE paper in future. As far as this question that is given over here is concerned, I would say this is quite trivial because the solution is quite trivially found. But the agenda of this video is not only to discuss the solution of this problem, but to see a variation of this problem which would be far more interesting than this problem is. So we would discuss about the variation of this problem and we would draw out some concept out of it which we can apply to the questions of similar kind in future. So let me first read out this problem. Consider a system having m resources of the same type. These resources are shared by 3 processes A, B and C which have peak demands of 3, 4 and 6 respectively. For what value of m deadlock will not occur? So if the system has got enough resources such that all the peak demands of this 3 processes can be met, then the system would definitely be deadlock free, right? So if the system has got say 3 plus 4 plus 6 resources, 3 plus 4 is 7, 7 plus 6 is 13. If the system has got 13 resources, there would be no contention for resources between the processes and each process can actually get their peak demands met and can proceed towards completion without contending for resources with other processes. So the system would definitely be deadlock free. So with 13 resources the system would be deadlock free and therefore the solution of this, the answer of this problem is option D, that is 13. That is what we needed to find out. The question was for what value of m deadlock will not occur. So of course 13 would be the answer. Option D is correct, right? So it was trivially found out. Now we would try to find out, we would try to solve a variation of this problem which would be far more interesting, as I said. So the variation of the problem that we are going to attempt is this. So we are going to change only this part of the question. The question would be for what minimum value of m deadlock will not occur, or for what minimum value of m the system would be deadlock free. So that is what we are going to discuss in this video session. So to find out the minimum value of resources with which the system would become deadlock free, we would first find out the maximum number of resources with which the system would still be deadlock prone. So it is quite simple observation that as we go on adding resources to a system, the system eventually transits from becoming being deadlock prone to becoming deadlock free, right? So after we cross that threshold value of number of resources, the system becomes deadlock free. So that particular value, that threshold value or the maximum number of resources with which the system is still deadlock prone, that is what is important for us. If we find out that value, if we are able to find out that value, if we add just a single resource to that number of resources, then the system becomes deadlock free, right? So our first attempt would be to find out the maximum number of resources with which the system would still be deadlock prone, and to that if we add 1, then we would get the value of minimum number of resources with which the system would become deadlock free, right? So to find out that maximum or that threshold number of resources, first we start with the definition of deadlock. So what is deadlock? A deadlock definition is given over here in the screen. A set of processes is said to be in deadlock if each one of them are holding certain resources and waiting for certain other resources held by processes of the same set. So this is what deadlock is, that each of the processes of the set has to satisfy hold and wait condition. That is, they would be holding certain number of resources and would be waiting for certain other resources which would be held by processes of the same set. Then we would say that the processes of the set are in deadlock. Right? Now with this definition of deadlock, now let us attempt to find out the maximum number of resources with which the system would still be deadlock prone. So to find out the maximum number of resources, we would consider a scenario in which all the processes would be taking part in deadlock and each process would consume or occupy maximum possible resources and still be satisfying hold and wait condition. So that maximum possible number of resources for a process would be nothing but their peak value, their peak demand minus 1. If we could allocate to a process their peak demand minus 1 number of resources and can make it wait for just a single resource, then that would give us the maximum number of resources with which the process would still satisfy the hold and wait condition, right? So for this particular problem, if we can make process A to hold 3 minus 1 resource, that is 2 resources, and wait for just a single resource, and then if we can make process B to hold 4 minus 1, that is 3 resources, and wait for just a single resource, and likewise if we can allocate 6 minus 1 resources to process C and make it wait for a single resource. So all the processes would be satisfying hold and wait condition and they would be holding maximum possible number of resources, right? The summation of all these values would then give us the maximum number of resources with which the system would still be deadlock prone. So 10 is the maximum number of resources for this particular system that would keep the system deadlock prone, right? And to this threshold value, to this max value, if we add just a single resource, then we would get the minimum number of resources which would make the system deadlock free, and this is the magical number which makes the system deadlock free. So the solution of the variation of the problem that we are attempting is 11 for this system, right? So that would be the solution. Now let us generalize this concept that the maximum number of resources with which the system would still be deadlock prone can be given by, let us first assume that for a process Pi, Xi is its peak demand. So the peak demand for a process Pi is Xi. So if we deduct a 1 from it, like we did here for this particular problem, and allocate this to the process Pi and make it wait for just a single resource, right? And if we add up all these values for all the processes, so if there are n processes starting from 1 to n, if we sum this up, we have the value of maximum number of resources with which the system would still be deadlock prone, and to that if we add just a single resource, then we have got the minimum value, the minimum number of resources with which the system would become deadlock free. So this is the formula for minimum number of resources with which system would be deadlock free. So this is the key takeaway. This formula is the key takeaway from this video session. And we have found out by applying this formula on this particular problem, we have found out that 11 is the number of resources with which this particular system with these processes would become deadlock free. So hope you have understood the logic. Thanks for watching. Bye.